Welcome back to Hartford, where the sun is setting outside, but the action shows no signs of stopping inside. We are now in round 6 of YCS Hartford here at the Connecticut Convention Center, officially past the halfway point of day 1.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see all the different decks we've been seeing. We have been seeing our fair share of Despias, our fair share of Sword Souls, but we've seen them almost certainly get defeated sometimes by these more obscure strategies like Predaplan. Predaplan's been really dominating in these feature match tables, as well as Dragon Link we got to see as well.
41 undefeated duelists left, and some of our duelists we've been keeping an eye on throughout the event to see how their interesting decks perform and finally taken their first loss in round 5. They're just kind of staring down the barrel here going into the last few rounds, because you don't want to go into day 2 X2.
I mean, yeah, with this many players, I think going at X2, you do feel a lot safer than you would at a much higher number. So it's pretty reasonable to go X2. I think you still just want to be at that 1-loss region. If you're undefeated, then great, but it's a lot to ask for, even with 9 rounds of Swiss. You know, having that 100% win rate is a lot to ask for when you have to play that many rounds.
All right, so we are ready for our round 6 feature match. Let's take a look. And here we are, Christopher from Pasadena, Massachusetts. That's just the other Pasadena, not the one up north. And facing off against him is going to be Fabio R from Providence, Rhode Island. This here card is Teller Knight Denna, great searcher type card. I know the other one's totally awesome. It's pretty good pick.
Yeah, it's some interesting choices. The eras from 2014 to 2016, you know, a lot of people look at them very fondly.
Yeah, I always like the Paleozoic deck, Paleozoic frog deck.
Yeah, like an alt trap strategy back, like for what it was really interesting, and especially in a meta where it was so dominated by some other deck, but back to deck just kind of came out of nowhere and came out on top in a format where like the Zodiac was crazy, right? Yeah, totally awesome. Was definitely insane. It's probably going to be insane again relatively soon.
It's a possibility. It's a distinct possibility. But for a few months, we now have this current format, which I've been really fascinated by watching all the matches so far. Despia is one of those decks that is like branded Despia. It's kind of unassuming at first. It's like, yeah, okay, they got Fright from Patrick. What are they going to do with polymerization and an edge of chain? What's the worst that can happen there? Turns out a lot of bad things can happen to you if they have enough cards.
Yeah, just any number of things, really. I think that's what makes the Despia deck so strong, is that it has all those options, right? You can't really entirely predict where it's going to go. It can just kind of pick and choose what fits a situation the best, and those are the kind of decks I like the most, the ones that are really flexible. And I think it proves why the deck's been doing so well the entirety of its time that it's been around since the release of the Fallen Battle Structure deck.
Absolutely. And one thing we haven't seen yet that we're going to see shortly is the Therions from Dimension Force. We've been talking about them all day, but we haven't really seen them yet. So I'm excited to finally get a look at those cards, which they're a little confusing at first, but we'll walk you through it as we get started here in Game 1.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that deck played off as well. I haven't really been able to see a full match of that deck independently, so I'm excited as well, just for my own sake.
All right, here we go.
Let's see which player gets to lead this match.
Looks like it's going to be Fabio.
So, he's thinking about leading with the Prosperity. Prosperity is an interesting card to see in the branded Despia deck, which means you're not opting to play cards such as Allure of Darkness, and you're not opting to try to summon Chimera turn 1. Generally speaking, if you're going second, that's a power play that you have, especially when you're trying to play cards such as Piper Patchwork. You want to be able to have access to a play such as Guardian Chimera to force through interruptions, force through obstacles on the field. But with Prosperity, you're not able to activate any effects that draw cards, so you're going to take away that ability. But when you're going first, that's perfect. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just get to find that branded fusion. You get to find whatever piece you might be looking for, and really just try to set up as much advantage as you can.
Yeah, it's not really a card that I've seen a whole lot of in the branded Despia decks. Normally when I see Pot of Prosperity in a deck these days, they're actually using it in part because it gets you to, whatever specific thing you're looking for, but also because it makes it a little more viable to use the Fusion Destiny cards, along with Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, which is another name that hasn't cropped up today after the forbidding of Anaconda.
Right. Even if with Prosperity going to find a 2 of with 6 more potential options, it's still not nearly as easy as just any 2 monsters on the field.
Yep.
So, understandably a little less popular going into this event, but maybe we'll see it later in the tournament.
Picks up the Luber from the top 6.
I will normal summon. I will the Jester of Despia and activate it.
Activates the effect. That's good to go.
Usually you don't want to see too many interruptions on the Aliber. I feel like even if you do have copies of Infinite Impermanence or Effect Failure, it's sometimes correct to just wait for the Lebellion and try to cut that off. The only real punish is Brandon Red. If they do have a copy of Brandon Red, you are really, really sad because they end on a Draco Stapelia as well as whatever else they were trying to do, and you lost that card in your hand.
This Branded Fusion gets hit by Ash Blossom. Doesn't appear that he has the Branded in red. It's got a handful of Polymerization, Edge Imp,
And DD Crow. And Super Poly.
multiple fusion effects. It's going to fuse to the Despia and the Edge Imp Chain.
This could at least be a Masquerade or Despian Coritis to try to force his way into the remainder of the game. It looks like he's going to opt for the Coritis though. A little bit sticky. As long as you destroy it without destroying it by battle, it will be able to summon either a Fallen of Albaz or a Despian monster, and keep you just in the game most likely. And with the Aliber Engrave as well, it's really hard to just outright blow out Fabio right now, outside of just going into the battle phase.
It's kind of a scary card, being able to just zero out the attack of everything but fusions, level 8 plus fusions.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite cards against the Sword Soul matchup in particular, when you have access to the Polymerization engine.
Picks up the Patchwork off of Edge Imp's effect, activates that as well.
That's pretty correct.
Able to just thin out the deck a little bit more, try to set up next turn. Has the Coritis to potentially just get access to his engine again, and then the Super Poly will likely be able to defend him if he is able to play against a matchup where it's going to be potent. And luckily for him, it could easily happen with any Dark Monster because he does have Fusion Monster on the side of the field.
So what Pop-Therion does is I can send it from my hand to the graveyard. It's called effect is send one card from my hand to the graveyard, and if I do, special summon a punk monster from my deck except the level 1. Okay.
Explained very well. Foxy Tune is sent to the graveyard. Sends the Argyro system to the graveyard. That's kind of the foolish burial type effect for Therions, but it also lets you pick them back up from the graveyard.
Honestly, very reminiscent to, I want to say, the Quackimira core.
A little, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a similar theme, a bunch of different types that are all united by certain cards. In this case, the Argyro system and Discolossium.
Return one to my hand and the other to the bottom of my hand.
Honestly, when I started reading all the Therion cards,
Correct.
it just it felt like they just kept getting more ridiculous. Yeah, the cards had to do something. I'm glad we're getting to see them do a lot here.
And the pump monster that was summoned is a Ammon. That's kind of the common one. It's a level 3 tuner that lets you pay, 600 life points
To add another monster.
to add a pump to your hand.
Using the Super Polymerization immediately on the punks being on the field.
This is not a dark monster.
It is not a dark monster.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Correct. It's an earth monster.
Well, that is very awkward now.
Little bit. Not a legal move. He'll have to come up with something else that can take a level 3 earth psychic as material.
Still cannot. This is not
Yeah,
a dark monster.
Yeah, I do not believe he has a legal target for your summons.
I don't know if
There should
Strike 2 on that one. And it's not from the extra deck. You don't have an Albaz. And that means that there is, in fact, nothing available. So we're going to reverse the game state here. And you get a procedural error with that. All the monsters in question were in defense position, so they'll go back there.
So I will pay 600.
They're going to be able to add that monster that you mentioned earlier. So, what is the particular benefit of having the Punk cards with the Therion cards?
Yeah, so one of the Therians is in fact a psychic type monster. So there's a natural bridge between the two sets of cards there, and you are putting a lot of stuff into the graveyard as well. So these cards are going to come out for free, and you get into your extra deck extremely easily.
So this one, on the
Gotcha.
it's both the spectrum.
So, if you were to compare this strategy to any of the most recently existing strategies, which one would you compare it to?
Yeah, so this is kind of like
A 600, you synchro summon a punk monster.
it's kind of like the older version of the synchro deck. It's just kind of mixed with. I mean, it's really bizarre because the way the Therians work is kind of like nothing else. But it's a little bit of ABC, it's a little bit of the synchro deck, and it's not really a surprise as a result that the cards work the best, really, in those two particular strategies.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense when you want to kind of flow freely, I want to say. Like, just taking a look at this extra deck right now, that is some of the most generic card pool that I could see.
So it is.
So this is the fusion monster for punks. The monster that he searched out there lets you go ahead and fusion summon, and it's kind of a I don't really want to call it a rescue cat, but it's kind of a rescue cat that you also want to synchro summon with. If you're just playing the Punk deck normally, you would want to get that out with another level 3 tuner and synchro summon the Amazing Dragon and bounce a lot of cards away and win that way. And that's one of the ways you can win with this deck. It's very good at dropping level 11 synchros. But during the setup phases of the game, the Rising Carp is incredibly valuable for getting all of your different monsters into rotation.
Send one to the graveyard.
So it looks like you summoned another copy of Xiamen, and which one is the other, the level 4?
So that's the level 5. That's Deer Note. So that's another card from Dimension Force. And it's got an in-hand effect, but the important thing here is that it's a level 5 monster so that you can go into a level 8.
Okay, that's a very familiar level 8 monster. If they're going to make summon any level 8 synchro monster, that's the one I would choose.
Yeah, now things get kind of off the hook.
Let's see how many valuable effects he can get. The Therion's not initially valuable in the graveyard, but he does have the spell to add to the back.
System, yes.
Damage from my graveyard.
Now, are any of the Therion's light or darks to immediately be added?
I believe they are. I believe the Psychic one is. I'll have to take a look at that offhand, because we know that your Regulus Earth is the standard for the Earth Machine deck.
We do see the Lily Borea at the very minimum, so you do get to add that back, and then that will be able to get to the field spell, which will be able to get the Regulus, or whichever other piece this is, because there is the full suite of Therians.
Yeah, it's really just a hybrid deck between the two. You play most of, not quite all of the Punks, and most of, but not quite all of the Therians. So let me just look that up real fast. So the light and dark ones are Dukiel the Psychic,
Lily Borea, my graveyard.
and just that one.
Okay,
Just that one. It's the Psychic.
well, he did sadly miss that one, but he did manage to hit the Borea, and I think that's just good enough. You're going to be able to start accessing that Therion engine immediately.
A light and a dark.
And we did see ZD Crow on the Xiamen as well. Which effect was that with the trigger that would force out the GD Crow there?
Yeah, it's presumably the summoning effect, because you have to target the monster in your graveyard. Oh, no, here it is.
The GD Crow was used on the summon of Chaos Ruler before the Mills Reap happened.
Send a card from
Interesting.
the field to the graveyard to search a Therion spell effect card. And when it's equipped, it gives 700 attack plus that same ability. Reaper, when it's equipped, allows me to, your turn, quick effect, target a Therion card from install trap mode, and one card you control return to the menu.
Alright, so get your brains ready on how this works. The Therians do two different things. They each have their own kind of signature effect that they do while they're on the field, and you can also special summon them from your hand by targeting another monster with the same type in your graveyard, so in Lily's case a plant, or another Therion monster. And when that effect resolves, you special summon Therion from your hand, and you equip whatever monster's in the graveyard to it as an equip spell. So easy so far. The catch is that each of the Therian signature effects, so for example, Lily Borea's ability to search out a spell or trap card, a Therian spell or trap card, a Regulus' negation effect, that ability can be granted to whatever monster it is equipped to. And that monster can activate the ability as if it were the thing it was equipped to. It's kind of like inheriting the soul of the fallen monster, going into battle that way.
Yeah, truly an archetype that really shows the bond they have with each other. Now, it is important that you mention that it actually uses the effect as if it was the same card.
Yes.
So it does not bypass the once per turn clause.
Yes.
Because it's still the same names effect.
So they're all using the you can only use this once per turn, and the effect specifically, you can use this as if it were the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So it uses up the once per turn on that effect, but it is still the effect of the monster on the field for things like Called by the Grave, for instance. If you banish another copy of Regulus, while Regulus was an equip spell, for instance, and Lily was using its effect, it wouldn't prevent it, because it's Lily activating the effect, kind of like doing it for Regulus, because he can't right now, he's an equip spell.
And here is a Regulus himself. He is the in-theme negate. He does actually negate the effect, similar to Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, not the activation as you most commonly see on these on-field negates.
It's interesting that did Gearsu here.
Gearsu allowed to resolve, being able to go after that set super polymerization. Fabio opting not to use it.
Build all my guns everywhere. No, I'm not.
That's interesting. So a lot of the times, what you'll see with this kind of deck is if you don't know what the face down is, and you don't know what you're playing against, a lot of time your rank 8 play is going to be the Zombie Vampire, or Battle of Chaos, where you could just take a look at the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck while you're sending them to the graveyard, and then kind of sculpt the rest of your plays and what you want to end on for that. And speaking of end, it appears that that is the end of the duel. It's enough for
Yeah, Fabio not going to be able to really achieve any more advantage. Going over the Coritis over by battle does not trigger any of its effects, so you're not gaining any additional value from that. You still have the Regulus to potentially negate the top deck Branded Fusion, which is really the only thing that he has available to him to get him out of the situation. Unless, like, maybe a Desires into a Branded Fusion, but again, still something that could be negated by Regulus. Like, generally speaking, when you have so few cards, and there is a type of card, such as Regulus, on the opponent's side of the field, it's better to just call it quits and try to save time for the rest of the match.
And Regulus is good stuff. We're seeing it in just a ton of different places. The ABC decks that do so hot today, but if you check out what that deck can do, it's really impressive. It's maybe not consistent enough, but that's part of what's great about the Punk cards. Because they're all psychics, level 3 psychics, you get to run Emergency Teleport, and one Emergency Teleport can just spiral into a ton of other cards without even using your normal summon.
Yeah, it seems almost as if, because of already playing Chaos Ruler, and you mentioned the Zombie Vampire, it seems almost reminiscent to Dragon Link in its most recent iteration, where a couple of cards could just toolbox into the rest of your deck out of nowhere because of all these powerful effects that just access the top cards of your deck randomly.
It's kind of like just how Therions are a bunch of different types. It just taps into a bunch of different, classic deck types that we see all the time in these events.
It feels like those almost player-made decks, such as really reminiscent, if you will, all the way back to Plant Synchro.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where it's just a couple of good cards that just found a way to work with each other, and you never know how it actually works out. And it creates this synergy that I wasn't sure if it was planned or not, but it's really cool to see.
Yeah, like the old Dandelion deck, for instance. I can keep sending this to the graveyard and then getting it back how many times?
Yes, old Dandy Warrior. The Drill Warrior combo shenanigans.
Popular in the Innocent format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's another popular one for the Time Wizard events.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely see a lot of people going back to that format fondly. But speaking of this format currently, I believe it's just deck builder's dream when you have all these potential themes and cards that just happen to work with each other, right? When you have the freedom to explore strategies, like I think like Punk Therion is already being hyped up. You're seeing it do this well at YCS level event, and I think there's so much room for you to explore, right? Dimension Force has only been out for so long. There's probably so much more a player can do with all these different card types and these themes. And going into later events, I'm really excited, or just not even later events, like later in this tournament, seeing what people will do and what becomes more defined. I'm just very excited to see what ends up coming of it.
It's been high impact between the Predaplants, these Therion cards. It's just been a lot of stuff seeing play, and seeing play in interesting ways too. Like if you just look at Therions on their own, it just seems kind of linear, but it's really, really not once you start getting into it.
It looks like the players are shuffled up and ready for game 2 here. Fabio opting to start again, and yet again, Branded Fusion is met by Ash Blossom. That is rough, nothing to stop it there. But he does have a copy of Dimensional Barrier. He's going to be able to limit some Synchro plays or some Xyz plays. But as we saw from that last turn, it seems like he has quite a lot of options.
And that's the thing, is if your opponent can get just all the extra deck monster types, Dimensional Barrier has a lot less value.
Ecclesia is a very interesting interruption because of being able to access Fall in the Valbaz on your opponent's turn. Being able to potentially turn to a Mirror Jade is actually quite strong here.
That seems a little better to back up the Dimensional Barrier. So you can use the barrier to stop the first thing, and when your opponent thinks, okay, well, now I'm going to get into it, or get into this other thing that's not called by Dimensional Barrier, you just eat that up with Albaz.
Right, so that was using the effect of Punk Ogre, sending itself to the graveyard. What does that exactly grab for him?
That goes ahead and gets him one of the level 3s.
Okay, so you can discard to essentially search for any of the other monsters.
Yep.
And the deck is very functional at searching other copies of itself.
600.
And then we do get to see Christopher going for the Xamen again. I wonder, do you think he's going to search Foxy Tune, or do you think he's going to search another card now that he's already committed his normal summon?
Yeah, he needs to get another monster on the field here, and the best way that you're going to do that is, it could be Deer Note, because Deer Note can do it as well. Summon either herself or whatever card is revealed along with it.
Okay, it looks like Christopher also has a copy of Dimensional Barrier in his own hand, so if he is able to establish anything, then he's going to be able to lock Fabio out another turn. Let's call him. Yeah, I feel like that is a card that you might have to Ash Blossom, because eventually it will just get you to Regulus.
Yep. Yeah, Deer Note is very, very good. We went to not really seeing the Punk cards at all to... Oh, he's got both. He already had Foxy Tune.
Special one and the other to the graveyard.
So one of these cards goes to the field, the other goes to the graveyard. Gets the Deer Note.
Yep.
Alright. So we know he's got the Dimensional Barrier down. Does he call Synchro here? Both Earth monsters.
I think, yeah, Fabio just has to be kind of as patient as possible. He does have access to an immediate 8-star Synchro. He doesn't really want to allow that to happen, but it looks like he's going to allow the Chaos Ruler to come hit the field again. But at this point, he might just call Synchro now.
Yeah, block the effect.
And then he does have the option to go into the Mirror Jade and keep his engine alive.
Chain link 1 Chaos Ruler, chain link 2 Tyranno, target Xeon.
Really contemplating his options here.
Chain 3-dimensional barrier, mostly moves.
Sure.
Oh, opting to chain the Ecclesia as well, going straight into the Mirror Jade as quickly as he can.
I want to take a close look at Dimensional Barrier right there. Yeah, no, okay, no, it will work, because Albaz won't activate until the next chain.
We have darks and lights.
I had Dark Lights.
So Darks and Lights. Fallen Albaz activates. Oh, Chains Forbidden Droplet sending the Disc Coliseum.
And not going to be able to activate that tragedy as well. It was discarded as a cost. This gives Fabio no cards. Even if Christopher isn't able to set up anything oppressive, there is a Dimensional Barrier on Christopher's side as well. So Fabio is really fighting an uphill battle right now. Okay, we will see. So he can't Synchro Summon anymore. He's a 3-star tuner, a level 8 monster. Normally that would make a level 11 Synchro, as you mentioned earlier, but he has plenty of Blink options. So let's see, looks like he's going to attempt to summon Halky Fibrax, one of the best Link monsters ever.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. Its partner in crime, no longer with us. In Auroradon.
So, ideally, when you summon Halky Fibrax in this deck, I feel like you have a lot of options.
Yes. In this case, he's going to go for Ash Moss. This feels like something a little more standard, not really like a crazy power play. Let's take a look. What else could he get out of this?
I mean, you could turn the Halki Rex into something along the lines of Formula Synchron on the next turn.
15 over 900.
Yeah.
600 damage.
I think Christopher was beating himself up over missing some damage here. He could have just attacked with the Chaos Ruler first,
Yeah.
but he is setting himself up here to establish a lot more resources going into the next turn.
So we got a dimensional barrier. We can tag out for Formula Synchron. What else could we get here? That's running.
It looks like it's more than likely Formula Synchron. I don't see a Wonder Magician or a... Okay, oh wait.
Do you have perspective like that? I like the effect plus 5 dice.
Yeah. You can't forget about Tragedies affecting Graveyard to be able to reset those random spells and traps. Very useful factor, especially in a situation like this. Being able to put it in the Graveyard was actually really, really valuable for Fabio, and he would be in a fantastic position if that set card wasn't a dimensional barrier.
Exactly. So we see the Formula Synchron. Christopher's going to pick up another card here. Flips the Branded Fusion. Chains Dimensional Barrier on Fusion, and you could hear the exhale from the table right there.
Not having the best time right now.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
We're just seeing how powerful Dimensional Barrier is in this tournament. We mentioned how these decks are extremely targeted, right? Branded Despia as well as Sword Soul, both popular decks that are really kind of mono-theme. You know, we got the fusions on one end, we got the synchros on the other. Both very easy to target down with a card like Dimensional Barrier. And why decks like this are able to just kind of go scot-free, because they're able to play under Dimensional Barrier a lot better, while still being able to use it against these decks and just have that advantage going into these matchups.
Yeah, this is a scary deck, especially if you've never seen it before, and you're just trying to figure out card by card what they might be going for. And you just get to play so many really powerful cards.
So we have access to that level 11 synchro we mentioned earlier here.
Yep.
Which one do you think he's going to make?
I think you probably go with the Carp here. Yeah, I think you go with the Carp. Although you generally want to synchro some of that with the Fusion monster, so that you can get the extra effects there. You get multiple attacks.
Okay, it looks like he's going to take it a little bit slow here. Yeah, just deal some damage, go a little bit. Does he actually play the Hot Red Dragon King Calamity as well? Doesn't seem like it.
I think it's just Archfiend Abyss.
Okay, that makes sense. Because technically, he did have the formula, he did have the Chaos Ruler, he only needed another level 2 tuner. That's not the hardest thing to find. But he did find another Disc Coliseum. And I think being able to set up a Regulus from this position is likely good enough.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Actually, he's got, 10 material? Or 10 levels worth of material? He could make Baron.
Yeah, absolutely. Just having a Baron plus Regulus to Fabio's 2 cards, I think that pretty much checks everything.
That's got to do it, even if it picks up Branded Fusion. And the Formula Synchron is a machine as well.
Oh yeah, being able to put that in the grave to make Regulus live.
It's the psychic one. It protects. While I have a good control of the good card, there are monsters I control.
Oh, it looks like he doesn't go for Regulus immediately.
That's it. Yep. It's Duke effects.
It's going to bring back Duke.
Sure.
Duke is summoned.
So these cards can be destroyed by permanents, right?
Yes, Therion monsters.
So his effect is that they cannot be destroyed by card effects.
Right.
Very good.
I think the old Nightmare setup.
Ah,
It's a lot like that.
oh, not very fond of those memories. Oh, he's synchroing with it immediately, going for the Baron there. Interesting. And then Regulus as well? I can only assume.
And I will pass the turn.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Very interesting. Opting to keep the Chaos Ruler on the side of the field here.
That's interesting. I don't know that I would have run it that way. I value having 2 negations against 2 cards.
He might have missed that formula was a machine and didn't think he had a way to summon the Regulus.
That's possible, because he did banish Halka Rex.
Alright. He's really hoping on this draw. Don't think the card in his hand was useful either way. Oh, it was a Fallen of Albaz.
Yeah, Fallen of Albaz doesn't do it. I don't know that other one's going to do it either.
Yeah, Forbidden Droplet. Like, if you could discard the Droplet as well as chain it at the same time, that would get him there.
That could help.
Actually, well, he'd still have to give up the Albaz, so I guess not. But
Yep, that's a little rough.
It looks like Thor.
He does, if he plays the Albert Renatus, he can at least attempt to link away or contact fuse away with the Chaos Ruler.
Yep. I haven't seen anybody running it yet. Not even as a side deck card, which is a little surprising.
Yeah, there's not enough respect for the Dragon strategy. I think that it's scared enough people off, you don't have to play it. But we did see a Dragon Link in this tournament earlier, so maybe some people will regret it.
Still lurking out there. And it does appear that Christopher has taken a 2-0 win here with his Punk Therion deck. Fascinating mashup. We got to see a lot of the power behind it, and like really, it could be even greater than that.
Absolutely. I feel like we saw him do only half of what he really could potentially go, but it was enough after being able to use those other resources in his hand to make sure Branded Fusion and other of the most powerful cards in the Branded Despia deck couldn't get to where he needed to be. And just seeing how these new decks from Dimension Force just being so powerful that they outclass the decks that we have been further. But we'll catch up with Christopher here in the post-match interview after this break.